My name's Riley. I'm 17, and if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be living with my older brother instead of my dad, I probably would have laughed. But here I am telling you this story not from my childhood home, but from a tiny spare bedroom that smells like pizza and old gym socks, and honestly, it's the most peace I've felt in months. I guess this all started years ago. My mom passed away when I was 10. Cancer. I still remember how it felt to sit in that cold hospital room pretending I was okay while everything inside me was falling apart. But Ethan, 45, barely made it through that time. He buried himself in work and tried his best to keep it together, but truthfully, it was my older brother Chase who held me up. Chase was 15 back then, just a teenager still trying to figure himself out, but the way he stepped up, I'll never forget it. He cooked for me, helped me with homework, even braided my hair for picture day once. It was weird and messy and kind of amazing. We had this goofy bond filled with inside jokes and stupid nicknames that made life bearable. Dad used to say it reminded him of how Mom and I were full of light even in the darkest moments. So when he started seeing someone new, I tried to be supportive. I wanted him to be happy. That's how Monica entered the picture. She was 39, smart, polished, and worked with Dad at his law firm. Recently divorced with a daughter my age named Ivy. At first, I told myself it might not be so bad. Monica smiled a lot, and Ivy seemed okay if a little quiet. But things moved way too fast. Like 6 months, and we're engaged fast. Suddenly, we were a blended family, whether we liked it or not. They moved in, redecorated, and restructured everything. My butterfly wallpaper, which Mom and I had picked out when I was 8, gone, replaced with beige and gray mature tones. Our kitchen, where Chase and I used to make burnt pancakes every Saturday, turned into Monica's pristine, no-noise zone. The wedding was awkward. I stood there in a dress I didn't choose, smiling for pictures that didn't feel real. Chase noticed. He kept making dumb faces at me across the reception hall just to make me laugh. It worked until Monica pulled him aside and told him he was being childish. That was the first red flag. I should have paid more attention. Living with Monica and Ivy was tense. Monica was big on rules. Curfews, quiet hours, phone usage logs. Ivy thrived under it like she was built for structure. Me, I felt like I was suffocating. Chase was still my safe space, though. He came by often, usually bringing donuts or fake emergency kidnapping rescues. Once he showed up in a full Batman costume just to whisk me out for ice cream. Dad laughed. Monica didn't. Over time, she started making snide comments. "You're too dependent on your brother. It's not healthy. You need to grow up." I brushed it off at first. But it kept happening. And what hurt more, Dad never shut it down. He just stayed quiet. Or worse, agreed. The tension grew slowly, like boiling water. Until Labor Day. Every year, we hosted a big barbecue. It used to be my mom's favorite tradition. This year felt different. Cold, stiff. Chase had just moved back after college, and I was so excited to have him around again. During the party, I snuck up behind him and pushed him into the pool. Classic sibling move, nothing new. He came up laughing, grabbed my ankle, and pulled me in. We were both soaked and cracking up. Everyone else was too, except Monica. She stormed over like a thundercloud, yelling at Chase about how irresponsible he was and how he could have hurt me. I tried to explain it was just a joke, that I started it. She wasn't interested. Then she turned on me. 17 is too old for this nonsense, she snapped. You need to act your age. In front of our family, in front of my friends. I saw red, and maybe I shouldn't have snapped back, but I did. You're not my mom, I said. So stop pretending you can control how I act with my brother. Silence. You could hear the pool filter humming. I saw Dad's face, pale, shocked. Monica looked like she'd been slapped. Chase just stared, frozen. The barbecue ended early. People left in awkward clumps, whispering on their way out. That night, Dad knocked on my door. We need to talk. He said he understood I was upset, but that I needed to apologize to Monica for being disrespectful. I couldn't believe it. She humiliated me in front of everyone, I said. She's been trying to turn you against Chase and me for years, and you let her? He told me I was being dramatic. That Monica was just trying to bring order into our lives. That I should try harder. That's when it hit me he was choosing her. Not outright, but enough to hurt. I told him I wouldn't apologize unless she did too for every time she criticized my clothes, my laugh, my brother, or the way I grieved Mom. He didn't respond, just sighed and walked out. The days after were brutal. Monica stopped speaking to me. She made Ivy pass along messages like I was some outsider. Chase, guilt-ridden, stopped coming by, said he didn't want to make things worse. I started to feel invisible in my own house. Ivy, bless her, tried to mediate. Said Monica meant well, but she didn't understand. She never had to learn how to live with someone new. I was the one who lost a mom and then watched her room, her kitchen, her life get erased. I began wondering if I was the problem, if Mom would be ashamed of how I handled it. But something inside me said no. This wasn't about tantrums or growing pains. This was about being erased. And I wasn't going to keep disappearing just to make Monica comfortable. After the barbecue, things at home spiraled faster than I expected. The silence between Monica and me wasn't just awkward, it was strategic. She didn't argue, she didn't fight. She just iced me out completely, which somehow felt worse. No yelling, no drama, just cold, careful distance like I was a problem she could file away. She stopped calling me Riley, started referring to me as her or your daughter whenever she spoke to Dad. Ivy noticed, but said nothing. Dad tried to act like everything was normal, like we could all just move past it without actually fixing anything. But I saw it in his eyes. He was tired, conflicted, and choosing comfort over confrontation. Chase, meanwhile, had disappeared. I texted him. No reply. I called. Straight to voicemail. A week passed with nothing, and I was starting to panic. I knew he wouldn't cut me off on his own. Something had happened. Then one night, while lying awake, I got a message from him. Just 5 words, can't talk. She messaged me. My stomach dropped. The next morning, he called. Quiet voice, tense, like he didn't want anyone to overhear. Monica had sent him a long, scathing message. Said he was a bad influence. That he was encouraging my emotional immaturity. That his presence was undermining her authority and disrupting the family. She told him he should stay away for a while for my own good. I felt like the air had been punched out of me. It wasn't enough that she had Dad wrapped around her finger. Now she wanted Chase gone too. And the worst part? It was working. Dad had said nothing. He didn't defend Chase, didn't tell Monica to back off. He just let it happen. Let her push the one person I still felt safe with out of my life like he was some troublemaking guest. I tried talking to him about it later that night, hoping maybe he didn't know the full story. But he did. He just didn't want to get involved. Said it was between you and Monica and that everyone needs to calm down. I stared at him, wondering if he even realized how much that hurt, how much he'd changed. Back when Mom was alive, Dad was the one who stood up for us. He was the one who defended family no matter what. But now with Monica, he just looked tired. Like he'd given up choosing sides and decided the path of least resistance was the only one worth walking. Monica wasn't subtle about her next move. New rules started popping up, ones that clearly only applied to me. A curfew, limits on phone time, chores I'd never had before. Ivy, of course, was free to do whatever she wanted. When I asked why the double standard, Monica said it was because I'd proven to be more difficult. Dad just nodded along, not even trying to hide it anymore. I started feeling like a guest in my own home, like I had to knock just to be heard. One night, I overheard them arguing in the kitchen, voices low but sharp. Monica was saying it might be best if I went to live with my grandparents for a while. That maybe some space and structure would help me grow up. And then I heard Dad hesitate. He didn't say no. He didn't defend me. He just said maybe that would give everyone a break. That moment snapped something inside me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked quietly back to my room, shut the door, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. I thought about the macaroni picture frame I'd made for Mom in 2nd grade that used to hang by the staircase, how it disappeared the day Monica decided the hallway needed a more modern look. I thought about how she redecorated my bedroom when she moved in, ripping out every last trace of the space Mom and I had created together. I thought about how every memory was slowly being painted over with beige and silence. The next morning, I started packing. I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't make a scene. I just grabbed a small suitcase and the old photo album Mom made me when I was 9, the one filled with beach trips, birthday cakes, and family smiles that didn't feel fake. Then I called Chase. He didn't hesitate. "I'm coming to get you," he said. He showed up that afternoon, and the second I saw him, I broke down. Not a dramatic sob, just quiet, messy tears, the kind that don't make noise but say everything. Chase didn't say a word, just pulled me into a hug and held on like he wasn't letting go this time. Dad tried to stop me as we were walking out, asked if we could talk, said we could work things out. But I couldn't bring myself to look at him. I just said, "You made your choice," and walked past him. Ivy was standing in the hallway, eyes red and watery. "You don't have to go," she whispered. "Please don't go." I paused. My heart cracked a little because I knew she meant it. Ivy wasn't the enemy. She was just as stuck as I was in a house that only made room for Monica's version of right and wrong. But I couldn't stay, not when every corner of that place felt like it was shrinking around me. The ride to Chase's apartment was quiet at first. Then slowly, we started talking. About everything. About Mom. About Dad. About how we both had seen this coming but didn't want to believe it. He told me Monica had tried to convince him for years to create distance, saying it was time for me to stand on my own. But he knew it wasn't about independence, it was about isolation. He looked over at me and said I should have stepped in sooner. I just shook my head. "You're here now." That night, I fell asleep in a sleeping bag on his couch, surrounded by pizza boxes, blankets, and the hum of old cartoons playing softly in the background. And for the first time in months, I didn't wake up anxious. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible. And even though I knew this wasn't going to be easy, new school, new everything, I also knew I couldn't go back. Not unless something truly changed. Not unless Dad stopped trying to balance everyone's comfort on the weight of my silence. Because I'm done being quiet. Living with Chase wasn't glamorous. His apartment was small, cluttered with leftover college furniture, and the heater made weird clicking noises at night. But it was real. No eggshells, no walking around someone else's rules. Just two siblings figuring things out one day at a time. We split chores, rotated who cooked dinner if reheating frozen meals counted, and stayed up too late watching old movies Mom used to love. There was this weird comfort in it even if nothing was perfect. At least it was honest. School, though, was a different story. Changing high school's senior year wasn't easy. Everyone already had their circles. They'd grown up together, gone to the same middle schools, had years of shared memories I wasn't part of. I was the new girl with no backstory. The one who sat alone at lunch and got polite smiles but not real invitations. It stung more than I expected. I missed the familiarity of my old school, even if being home had been unbearable. At least there I'd known who I was. Chase tried to help in the ways only an older brother could. He encouraged me to join a club, introduced me to his friend's younger sister, Mia, who happened to go to my school. Mia was quiet but warm, in a way that made me feel like I didn't have to pretend. We bonded, slowly mostly, over shared sarcasm and a mutual hate for chemistry class. She lost her dad when she was 13. So when I talked about Mom, she didn't give me that awkward "I'm sorry" pity face. She just listened. Back at Chase's place, we were getting into a rhythm. I found a part-time job at a local bookstore, tiny, tucked between a laundromat and a vape shop, but peaceful. The owner, Mrs. Green, was in her 60s and sharp as a blade. She reminded me of a kinder version of Monica if Monica actually had a soul. She gave me space, but she also gave me advice when I needed it. Sometimes I stayed late just to chat with her. It was the kind of support I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Then 2 weeks after I moved out, Dad showed up at Chase's door. No warning, just knocked around 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. I opened the door and nearly dropped the bag of takeout I was holding. He looked different. Tired. Not just physically, emotionally drained in a way I hadn't seen since Mom died. "Can we talk?" he asked. I stepped aside wordlessly. Chase wasn't home yet. Probably a good thing. Dad sat on the edge of the couch like he wasn't sure he was allowed to get comfortable. I didn't offer him water. I didn't ask how he was. I waited. "I miss you," he said. I crossed my arms. "I know you're angry," he continued. "And you have every right to be. I wasn't there for you the way I should have been. I let things go too far with Monica. I thought keeping the peace meant staying quiet." He paused, as if waiting for me to jump in. I didn't. "I read your messages to Chase," he admitted. "I wasn't spying. He showed me. I asked him to. I wanted to understand what I'd missed." I looked at him then. Really looked. He didn't have that lawyer mask on anymore, the one he wore in court or at family dinners when Monica was present. He looked like a man who knew he'd failed and finally stopped pretending he hadn't. "You didn't just miss it," I said. "You let it happen. You stood there while she erased everything Mom left behind and you said nothing. You let her treat me like I didn't belong in my own house." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I know." The silence stretched. I wanted to yell. I wanted to hug him. I didn't do either. "She read my diary," I said, voice flat. "She went through my room and read every page. She didn't even deny it. Just told me I needed help." His face twisted in shock. I didn't know that. Of course he didn't. He hadn't been paying attention. I wondered how much else he'd missed over the years. "She made you choose," I said. "And you hesitated." He looked down. I was scared. Of breaking another family. Of failing again. I thought maybe if I kept quiet, things would fix themselves. I almost laughed. They don't. Not when the fix is pretending everything's fine while one person gets pushed out. He stood slowly. "I'm not asking you to come back right now, but I want to fix this. I want you to know I hear you. For the first time in a long time, I really do." I didn't answer. I couldn't trust words yet. Not his, not anyone's. Trust needed time. Proof. After he left, I sat on the couch for a long time, takeout forgotten. My phone buzzed, Chase asking if he should come home. I told him yes, but not to rush. I needed a moment. Just one. That night, I pulled out the photo album Mom had made me. I hadn't opened it in weeks. I flipped through the pages, beach trips, birthdays, our old golden retriever named Pickles. One photo stopped me. It was from my 10th birthday, the last one with Mom. I was holding a cupcake with a ridiculous amount of sprinkles. Dad had his arms around both Chase and me. We looked happy, real. I didn't know if we'd ever get that back. But part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't gone forever. The next day, Ivy texted me. Not Monica, not Dad, Ivy. She said she missed me. That the house was quiet now, tense. That Monica was in a mood and Dad barely spoke. She told me she was sorry I left, that she didn't do more. I replied, "It's not your job to fix what adults broke." She responded with a sad face emoji and a heart. It hurt in a strange, familiar way. I didn't want to hate her. And deep down, I didn't. Chase and I talked more that week about the future. About college. About what comes next. He helped me build a spreadsheet of scholarships, talked to his old advisor about transfer requirements, and even offered to help me get a tutor for math. It was weird having someone believe in me without expecting me to earn it first. No strings, just support. For once, I let myself believe things might actually be okay. Not perfect, but okay. And honestly, that felt like enough. A few weeks passed, and I started to feel the weight lift off my shoulders. Not all at once, more like shedding layers. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about Monica in hours. Another day, I walked past a bakery that used to make me sad because it reminded me of Mom, and instead of crying, I smiled. Healing doesn't come with a loud moment. It comes in small ones, quiet and unexpected. And slowly, I was getting pieces of myself back. School got better too. Mia introduced me to a few more people in her art club, and I started going after class. I wasn't good at drawing, but they didn't care. They just liked having someone who laughed at their jokes and didn't take things too seriously. For the first time since transferring, I didn't feel like an outsider sitting at someone else's lunch table. I belonged, even if just a little. At home, or I guess Chase's apartment, I started finding my rhythm. I kept the little bedroom clean, helped with groceries, and made sure my part-time shifts didn't interfere with schoolwork. Chase treated me like an equal, not a burden. Sometimes we'd just sit on the couch after dinner, both of us drained from our days, not talking much, but knowing we didn't have to. The silence wasn't heavy. It was safe. Then one Friday evening, Dad showed up again. He didn't bring Monica. Just him standing at the door holding a small box. Chase and I were watching TV, and for a moment, it felt like everything paused. Dad looked nervous, like he wasn't sure if we'd even open the door. Chase answered, motioned me over silently, and then gave us space. I brought some things Dad said, handing me the box. I sat down on the edge of the couch and opened it slowly. Inside were little pieces of my old life things I hadn't even realized were missing. A charm bracelet Mom gave me on my 9th birthday. The butterfly hair clip I used to wear on school picture days. A couple of drawings Chase and I made when we were kids. Even the silly macaroni picture frame I thought Monica had thrown away. They were in a storage bin in the garage, Dad said. Monica wanted to clean out some things. I saw them and thought, maybe they belonged with you. I couldn't speak. My throat tightened, not from anger this time, but something softer. Something I hadn't felt in a while, maybe forgiveness, maybe grief. Maybe both. Thank you, I whispered. He nodded, then sat across from me. I've been going to therapy, he said almost too quietly. I needed to hear from someone else what I wouldn't admit to myself. That caught me off guard. Dad, who had always handled emotions with logic and silence, now talking about feelings like they mattered. He continued, She told me I spent so much time trying to build a new life that I never noticed I was leaving you behind in the old one. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He looked down, then back at me. Monica and I are taking some space. I'm staying at a hotel right now. It's not permanent, but I told her I needed to figure out what kind of father I want to be. Not what kind of husband. Father. That word hit me harder than I expected. Not lawyer. Not provider, just father. I don't know if we can go back, he said. But if there's a way forward, I want to find it. With you. Not around you, not in spite of you. Part of me wanted to fall into his arms and pretend none of it had happened. But another part, the wiser part, knew better. You don't rebuild a house by covering the cracks with paint. You have to tear it down to the bones and start again. Still, it meant something that he was trying. I'm not ready, I said softly. But I'm not shutting the door either. He looked relieved. Like even that small crack of possibility was more than he'd hoped for. When he left, Chase came back into the room. He sat next to me, glanced at the box in my lap, and then looked at my face. You okay? He asked. Not sure, I said, but I think I'm starting to be. That weekend, I went through everything in the box. Every item had a memory tied to it. Some made me laugh, others made me cry, but all of them reminded me of who I used to be, and who I still was underneath all the damage. I put the butterfly clip in my drawer and the picture frame on the small bookshelf by my bed. I wasn't going back to that house, but I was reclaiming what was mine. Later that week, Ivy called. Not just a text, a real call. I know you probably don't want to talk to me, she said quickly before I could say anything. I do, I replied, and I meant it. She told me things were tense at home. Monica was upset. Dad barely spoke to her. Ivy felt like she was stuck in the middle of a storm she didn't start and couldn't fix. I listened, really listened, and for the first time I saw her not as the girl who thrived under Monica's rules, but as someone who had just learned how to survive quietly. Maybe she didn't fight because she didn't know how. I miss you, she said. I miss you too, I replied. We talked for over an hour. About everything. About how weird families can be. About how sometimes silence feels safer than truth. About how hard it is to unlearn the idea that love is earned through obedience. When we hung up, I felt lighter. Days kept moving. I studied hard, worked my shifts, and hung out with Mia more. We even went thrift shopping one Saturday, and I bought this ridiculous denim jacket with sunflowers on the back. It was loud, bright, nothing like what Monica would approve of, and it felt perfect. For once, I wasn't shrinking to fit into someone else's version of acceptable. One night, while Chase and I were eating takeout on the floor because the table was covered in laundry, he looked at me and said, "You're different." I raised an eyebrow. "I've been different." He shook his head. "No, free different." I smiled. I feel it too. That's the thing no one tells you about leaving behind a life that doesn't fit you. Don't just walk away from the pain. You also walk toward a version of yourself you forgot existed. And that's who I was starting to become again. By October, the air had cooled, and my world felt strangely still, like I was finally standing on solid ground after months of shaky floors. I walked to school most days with earbuds and hoodie pulled tight, and my sunflower jacket always zipped halfway up. I didn't need anyone's approval anymore. I wasn't performing for Monica or shrinking for Dad. I was just Riley, no labels, no edits. At school, things had settled. I wasn't the new girl anymore. Mia and I were inseparable by then. We'd trade stories over lunch, help each other cram for exams, and sometimes hang out at the bookstore where I worked. She liked to sketch in the back while I restocked shelves, and we'd laugh about the weird customers who came in just to argue over expired coupons. It felt normal, like my life had stitched itself back together in quiet, careful threads. One Thursday evening, Dad called again. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said to pick up. He asked if I wanted to meet him for coffee. Just coffee, no pressure, no Monica, no big speeches. I agreed mostly because I wanted to see what version of him would show up this time. We met at a cafe near my school. It was quiet, tucked between a florist and a bakery with worn leather chairs and too many plants. I spotted Dad by the window, 2 mugs in front of him. He stood when I walked in, hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to smile. I sat down, nodded at the coffee. "I remembered you liked caramel," he said. "I still do," I replied. We sat in silence for a few minutes, but it wasn't the uncomfortable kind. It felt like both of us were trying to say a lot without pushing too hard. He finally broke the quiet. "Monica and I have separated. It's official now." I didn't react, not right away. He waited, letting the words hang there like they needed room to breathe. "I tried to hold the family together," he said, but I realized I was holding the wrong parts. I looked at him, really looked. He had lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before, and his suit didn't fit as neatly as it used to. But his voice was clearer than I remembered. "Riley, I know I failed you. Not just with Monica. I failed to protect the things that mattered most. Like your bond with Chase. Like your right to grieve." I thought silence was the same as peace. But I see now it was just avoidance. I sipped my coffee, watching the people outside walk past with scarves and grocery bags, like their lives weren't cracking open like mine had. I didn't want a dramatic apology. I wanted honesty, and he was giving it. "I appreciate that," I said, "but I need you to understand something. I didn't leave because of one fight or one bad moment. I left because I felt erased. I felt like Mom disappeared, and then I started disappearing too." He nodded slowly. "I see that now. I'm not angry anymore," I added. "But I'm not coming home. Not like before. That house doesn't feel like mine." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "I just want to be part of your life again on your terms." That part stuck with me. On my terms. I'd never heard him say that before. We didn't stay long. We finished our coffee, talked a little about school and college, and then walked out into the cold. Before I turned to leave, he said something I'd been waiting years to hear. "Your mom would be proud of you." I didn't cry. Not there. But that sentence wrapped around my heart like a promise I'd been needing, and I held it close the whole way home. Back at the apartment, Chase was sitting on the floor assembling a wobbly bookshelf he bought from a yard sale. He looked up as I came in. "How was it?" he asked. "Better than expected," I said. "He's trying. He left Monica." Chase raised his eyebrows. "Didn't think he had it in him." "Me either," I replied. "But maybe people surprise you when they finally stop pretending." We ordered pizza that night, watched a cheesy sci-fi movie. Halfway through, I leaned over and said, "You know you saved my life, right?" He looked at me, caught off guard. "Riley, you saved your own life. I just gave you a couch." But I knew better. He didn't just give me a place to crash. He gave me room to remember who I was. And when everything else fell apart, he was the one person who never asked me to change to be loved. Later that week, I started working on my college essays. I didn't write about grades or test scores. I wrote about rebuilding, about grief and found family, about how sometimes you have to lose a home to find yourself. Chase read my first draft and gave me one of his rare, serious nods. "You're gonna get in somewhere great," he said. I hoped he was right. But even if I didn't, I already felt like I'd won something bigger. A chance to grow up on my own terms. A chance to be seen fully and clearly without anyone dimming the light. A few days later, Ivy called again. This time she sounded different, more nervous, more careful. "I'm thinking about moving in with Mom," she said quietly. I paused. "Are things that bad?" "Monica's not doing well," she said. "She blames everyone but herself." Dad leaving made her spiral. I'm tired of being the glue in a family that keeps cracking. I felt a sharp pang of guilt, like maybe my exit had set off a domino effect. But then I realized I didn't cause the fall. I just stopped pretending everything was upright. "I'm sorry you're going through that," I said. "It's not your fault," Ivy replied. "Actually, watching you leave, it gave me courage. You did what I've been too scared to do." That night, I stared at the ceiling for a long time, thinking about how pain moves through a family like a shadow, only leaving when someone finally switches on the light. Maybe my leaving hadn't just been for me. Maybe it had been the first step in untangling years of quiet damage. Dad started texting more often, not in a pushy way, just updates. A picture of our old dog at the vet, a video of him trying to cook spaghetti and burning it. It was small, but it felt genuine. I responded when I felt like it. I didn't rush. I didn't force it. We were building something new, and this time we were doing it right. There was still a long road ahead, but I wasn't walking it alone. And for once, I wasn't looking back, wondering what could have been. I was focused on what was next. Winter came quietly like a whisper across the sky. The trees outside Chase's apartment turned brittle and bare, and the wind took on that cold bite that made your breath feel like fog. Inside, though, life was warm. It was the kind of peace that didn't scream, just steady, honest calm. I spent more time with Mia and her family. They invited me for dinner once, and I ended up staying long after dessert helping her mom wash dishes while listening to old jazz music on a cracked kitchen speaker. There was no drama, no eggshells, just laughter, real and simple. It reminded me of what family is supposed to feel like, not perfect, just safe. At school, I found myself helping younger students in English class, something I never thought I'd enjoy. They asked me how I always had something to write about. I told them the truth: when you live through enough chaos, the words just sort of find you. And maybe that was the first time I realized I wasn't stuck in survival mode anymore. I wasn't waking up afraid. I was growing into someone I actually liked. One morning, I got an email from the admissions office at one of the colleges I'd applied to. It was short, just a subject line that said, "Welcome to our family." I sat there in the school library, phone in hand, blinking at the screen like maybe I'd imagined it. I hadn't. I got in. Chase was the first person I called. He answered halfway through brushing his teeth and didn't even wait to rinse before shouting, "I told you so." I laughed so hard I cried, which felt right. Like the world was giving something back little by little. Dad called later that night, said he was proud of me, that he'd already checked out the campus map and offered to help with move-in. I didn't give him a yes or no, just told him we'd talk more when the time came. Because rebuilding trust isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistency, showing up, and staying soft even when it would be easier to shut down. And to his credit, he was still trying quietly without expectation. Monica never reached out, not once. And I think in the end, that said everything. People show you who they are when they think they've won, but they really show you who they've always been when they realize they've lost control. She never said goodbye, never offered an apology, and I stopped waiting for one. Sometimes closure isn't handed to you. Sometimes you have to create it for yourself. Ivy ended up moving in with her mom after all. We still talk now and then. She sent me a picture of her new bedroom, painted soft lavender with bookshelves lining the walls. "It's the first room that's ever felt like mine," she said. I knew what that meant more than most. I told her to keep going, to trust her instincts, that she was allowed to choose peace even if other people called it selfish. As the holidays approached, Chase and I decorated the apartment with cheap string lights and a crooked mini tree we bought at a gas station. We made pancakes on Christmas morning, burnt messy, full of laughter. I set a place at the table with one of Mom's old mugs, the chipped one with the blue flower on it. We didn't say anything about it. We didn't need to. Some memories don't need to be spoken aloud to be honored. Eventually, Dad asked if we could all have dinner together. Just the three of us, him, Chase, and me. We chose a quiet restaurant halfway between his place and ours. The kind with low lights and soft music where the clinking of silverware fills the pauses in conversation. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward silences, moments where none of us knew what to say. But there were also smiles, real ones, and a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Chase cracked a joke about my overcooked grilled cheese from last week, and Dad laughed so hard he had to put his fork down. I looked at them both, these two people who had carried me in different ways, and felt something shift. Not everything needed to be fixed. Some things just needed to be different. And that was okay. Later that night, back in the apartment, I sat on the balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The city below was quiet, the sky holding back snow like a secret. I thought about everything that had changed since the day I left Dad's house. The heartbreak, the silence, the strength I didn't know I had. I remembered the version of me who sat in her room afraid of saying the wrong thing, afraid of being too much. I wanted to hug her, tell her she didn't need to be small to be loved. I also thought about Mom. How she used to say, "Some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to clear the path." And maybe that was what this whole year had been. A storm that left behind something raw but real. A new road. When spring came, I started packing for college. Chase helped me load boxes into his car, labeling each one in Sharpie. He kept asking if I needed this or that, and I kept telling him I was fine. But when we got to the last box, I saw him pause. It was the one with the photo album, the one Mom made. "You sure you want to take this?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, it's time." Because moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. It means carrying the right pieces with you. The ones that still hold love. The ones that remind you who you are and what you've survived. On my last night in the apartment, we ordered takeout and sat on the floor like we used to. No TV, no background noise. Just two siblings who'd made it through something heavy and came out better on the other side. Chase raised his water bottle like a toast. "To freedom," he said. I raised mine back. "To family, the kind you fight for." As I stood in the doorway the next morning, suitcase in hand, Chase gave me a tight hug and said, "You'll do great things, Riley." "I already did," I replied. I chose myself. And with that, I walked forward. No looking back. Because for the first time, the path ahead didn't feel like escape. It felt like home. Story 2. My sister was rescued from her violent marriage by me. She stopped talking to me for 7 years. After he cheated, once again, she is now back and requesting assistance. She's calling me callous because I said no. My 32-year-old sister, Mary, arrived at my house last week in tears. Once more, her husband had cheated on her. As if nothing had occurred, she wanted to live with me and my family. I closed the door after telling her no. My entire family is now accusing me of being callous. I realize this seems harsh, but this scenario is compounded by a lot of history. I used to be really close to Mary. We grew up together and are barely 2 years apart. Throughout our childhood, we made a commitment to support one another no matter what. When Mary was 19, she met Derek around 5 a.m. She fell deeply in love with him right away, and he was her first committed lover. Derek was a construction worker with a bad boy demeanor that Mary couldn't resist. He was never someone I liked. Even with Mary present, there was something about the way he gazed at other women that made me nauseous. Additionally, he was prone to making inconspicuous remarks that undermined Mary's self-assurance. He would comment that she should dress more like his friend's girlfriend or that her cooking wasn't as nice as his mom's. After just 6 months of dating, Mary moved in with Derek, which alarmed me. At the time, she worked in retail and made just enough money to pay half of her rent. Despite having a respectable income, Derek always appeared to spend it first on himself. Mary would phone me and ask for a $20 loan so she could buy food or buy petrol. I adored her, so I always said yes. Mary said they were getting married 2 years later. I made an effort to discuss with her the possibility of waiting a little while longer, perhaps living together for a few more years first. Because I was still unmarried, she became defensive and accused me of being envious. Even though it was the subject of our first serious argument, I went to her wedding and delivered a kind speech wishing them well. The issue arose very instantly. Derek would go missing for whole weekends without giving a reason. Mary would weep and contact me to ask whether she should be concerned. She would be seated on their couch in the exact clothing she had on the day before when I arrived. She would excuse him, claiming that he was only venting with his buddies or that work was stressing him out while surrounded by empty tissue boxes. After 3 years of marriage, Mary discovered Derek was unfaithful. She found text messages from a lady called Jessica, who worked at a downtown pub, on his phone. They had been sending out explicit texts for months. Derek did not even attempt to deny that Mary had approached him. Rather, he informed Mary that he was in love with Jessica and that she understood him better. That same evening, he moved in with Jessica after packing his stuff. Mary broke down totally. She was completely unable to function. At 2 a.m, she would phone me sometimes, simply sobbing silently. At other times, she spent hours talking about how foolish she felt and all the indicators she had missed. After a week of missing work, she quit and was let go. She had to return to living with her parents since she was unable to pay the rent on their flat on her own. Mary was sleeping on our parents' couch, which wasn't working for anyone. Our parents lived in a small 2-bedroom home. She needed a private place to recover, but she was unemployed and broke. I decided to let her live with me at that point. I had recently used my funds to purchase a modest home. I was utilizing the second of its 2 bedrooms as an office. I purchased Mary a bed dresser and anything else she needed to make it seem like home once I cleaned it out. I knew she couldn't pay the rent, so I didn't ask. All I wanted was for her to concentrate on recovering. During that period, Mary spent nearly 8 months living with me. I essentially handled everything. Mary could hardly get out of bed, so I handled most of the housekeeping, paid all the bills, and purchased all the food. On some days, I would find her right where I had left her that morning when I returned home from work at the bank, staring at the TV while still in pajamas. Every time I brought it up, she would start weeping, despite my best efforts to push her to find employment. She said that the idea of being among others made her anxious and that she wasn't prepared. I could tell how much pain she was in, so I stopped pressing. I concentrated on simply being there for her instead. Mary's condition gradually improved. She resumed taking regular showers and occasionally had dinner ready when I arrived home from work. She began seeking for jobs and was finally employed to work as a dentist office receptionist. Things were improving, and I was pleased with her progress. Derek then came back into view. His relationship with Jessica had apparently ended horribly. Derek learned the same thing Mary had about Jessica, that she had been having an affair with someone else. I didn't miss the irony, but Derek appeared to believe that he was also a victim. Derek began phoning Mary to apologize and explain that he had made the worst mistake of his life. He said that he had always loved Mary and that Jessica had deceived him. I could tell Mary was being drawn back in when she told me about these calls. I pleaded with her to never trust him again. I told her how long it had taken her to feel like herself again and all the hurt he had inflicted. Mary thought Derek sounded different this time, but she did listen to my worries. She mentioned that he had stopped drinking and was attending counseling. She thought he deserved a second opportunity since he had truly changed. People like Derek don't change, I told her. They simply get more adept at concealing their true selves. Mary began going out for coffee supper and weekends at Derek's new flat in spite of my cautions. She would tell me additional stories about how much he had changed and how remorseful he was every time she returned. She showed me the flowers he had purchased for her and read me texts in which he said he would make amends for her for the rest of his life. I observed Mary reverting to her old habits. She would prepare for Derek's purchase of new clothing for hours on end. She had no intention of impressing him. She would wait for his messages on her phone, checking it frequently. She began to lose the progress she had made while living with me. Once more, she developed an obsession with Derek. Mary informed me that she was leaving my home to reunite with Derek 6 months after he returned to her life. I was surprised, following all he had done to her. She was choose him again after all the times I'd held her as she sobbed. I inquired whether she recalled how devastated she had felt upon his departure. People deserve second chances, she added, and that was the past. The first thing I said to Mary was that she was making a big mistake. I said that since Derek is a cheater, he will harm her once again. Mary became defensive and said I didn't want her to be content. She said that I was attempting to take charge of her life and that perhaps I was envious since I was still unmarried while she was regaining her marriage. Her statements were painful because they were untrue. It's been a couple months since we started dating. A good-hearted man called Robert, 29, was a teacher. Simply put, I hadn't discussed him much since I was concentrating on Mary's recovery. I wasn't envious of her and Derek's connection. I was afraid for her. The argument turned into a yelling contest. Mary accused me of always believing I knew better than everyone else and of never defending her choices. I accused her of being gullible and putting herself in danger of suffering harm once more. She made it apparent that she preferred Derek's viewpoint over mine, albeit I won't repeat any of her comments here. The next week, Mary left. She didn't just walk away. She absolutely shut me out of her life. She unfriended me on all social media platforms and banned my phone number. She informed our parents that she didn't want to hear from me until I could accept her decisions and be pleased for her when I attempted to get in touch with them. I was heartbroken. Mary was more than simply my sibling. My best buddy was her. For years, we spoke daily, and then all of a sudden, there was stillness. I feel this tunnel in my chest as I pass locations where we used to go together. I would grab my phone to text her when I saw something amusing, but then I would realize I couldn't. Initially, our parents attempted to intervene. In order for us to be back together, they call and urge me to apologize to Mary. They said that family came before being correct about Derek. I made an effort to clarify that being correct wasn't the point. It was about witnessing a loved one make a choice that would ruin her. They were unwilling to listen to it. There was no communication for months. Our parents informed me that Mary and Derek had remarried in a modest ceremony. I was not invited. Additionally, I was informed that Mary was expecting her first child. I didn't even know her name till years after she gave birth to the kid, a small girl. My personal life was progressing at this time. After 2 years of dating, Robert and I became engaged. Despite the fact that we hadn't spoken for more than 3 years, we organized a lovely wedding and invited Mary. Perhaps the wedding will be a chance for us to get back in touch. Mary did not show up. Together, Robert and I purchased a home and began a family. Our twin boys are 5 years old now. They were unknown to Mary. She never acknowledged any of the significant events in my life or sent a card on their birth. She seemed to have lost the ability to see me. Over the years, I made a few attempts to contact Mary, but she never got back to me. When I inquired about her life, our parents would provide me with updates. 2 additional children, all daughters, were born to her and Derek. They purchased a home in a better area, and it seems that Derek had landed a better job. Externally, everything appeared flawless. I learned that there were issues once more last year from our mother. Derek had been behaving strangely, using his phone in a covert manner and staying out late. Mary was beginning to inquire after seeing some questionable purchases on their credit card. I remained silent despite knowing what was most likely going on. When I tried to alert Mary about Derek, I failed miserably. Mary's darkest worries were validated 2 months ago. She discovered that Derek was having an affair with a coworker. Financial issues also arose this time. Derek had been keeping his girlfriend's expenses a secret from Mary. They were late on their mortgage and had credit card debt that Mary was unaware of. Derek made no effort to show remorse when Mary confronted him. He informed her this time that he wanted a divorce since he was in love with the other lady. He left right away, leaving Mary to live alone in a house she couldn't afford with 3 small children. That leads us to Mary's arrival at my door last week. She had a horrible appearance. She didn't wash her hair. Her clothing seemed as though she had been sleeping in them and she had lost weight. I hadn't even fully opened the door when she started weeping. Mary got right into the tale of Derek's most recent treachery, as if we had only spoken yesterday. She told me about the debt, how she discovered the affair, and how he abandoned her. She then asked if she could remain with me and the kids while she worked out her next move. I recalled all the evenings I spent consoling her following the first affair as I stood there staring at her. How she had thrown everything away to return to him, and how I had helped her throughout the months she needed to recover. I recalled how over the previous 7 years she had entirely cut me out of her life and missed all of the significant events in mine. I informed Mary that the first was unable to assist her. I explained that I couldn't take on the burden of housing more people since I had my own family to consider. Mary appeared as though she had never thought about it. Perhaps I would say no. She stated she had nowhere else to go and began to cry more. Mary reminded me that family is meant to support one another and that we are sisters. She acknowledged that we had previously experienced issues, but she argued that since this was an emergency, such issues shouldn't be relevant at this time. I reminded her that my sister had not been present when I needed her for my wedding, the birth of my children, and other significant events. The discussion rapidly heated up. In times of difficulty, Mary accused me of being petty and harboring grudges. I reminded her that decisions had repercussions and that she had consistently picked Derek above her family members. She said that because she was married to him, it was different. Additionally, I should realize that marriage comes first. When I tried to warn Mary about her relationship with Derek, I asked her if she recalled how she had treated me. "I've been domineering and unhelpful," she said. I questioned her about if she believed Derek had changed since then or whether I had been correct about him all along. She didn't respond. Mary kept sobbing and pleading with me to change my mind. She said that her children were innocent and that they shouldn't have to endure the hardships caused by their parents' issues. She promised to reimburse me for everything when she recovered. She said she had learned her lesson about Derek and that this time would be different. Even though I've never met them, I do care about those kids, so I could feel myself beginning to falter. But then I remembered how Mary's turmoil had previously taken over my life, along with my own husband and kids. When she decided that I was no longer valuable to her, I reflected on how she had utterly abandoned me. I apologized to Mary for suffering through this, but I was unable to assist her. I advised her to either remain with her parents or research alternative options for women in her circumstances. According to Mary, our parents' home was too tiny for her and her 3 children, and since the divorce was still pending, she was ineligible for the majority of help programs. Mary made an effort to make me feel bad by claiming that she had never imagined her own sister would abandon her when she most needed assistance. She turned her back on me initially, and for a lot longer I reminded her. I stated that I would learn to live without her and that I had no desire to return to the previous state of affairs. Mary called me callous and selfish as the talk came to a close. She said that she would never be able to forgive me for leaving her family when they were in need. After shutting the door, I observed through the glass as she sobbed for 5 minutes or so in her car before leaving. My phone has been ringing non-stop ever since. My behavior has angered our parents. They claim that Mary is also their daughter and that I should put our disagreements aside in order to support her during this difficult time. I've been accused of being spiteful and harsh. Our mother even expressed her shame at the person I've grown into. I've also received calls from a number of Mary's pals. She has reportedly been telling people that while she was homeless with 3 children, her sister refused to assist her. They only perceive me as the antagonist who refuses to assist family members in need because they are unaware of the whole context of our relationship. I've been wondering if I made the correct choice. I keep thinking about whether I should have at least let those kids to remain for a night or two, and I feel bad about it. However, a larger part of me is aware that if I had said yes, I would have been back where I was 7 years ago, caring for Mary as she repeatedly repeats the same mistakes. Robert has been in favor of my choice. He serves as a reminder that Mary made decisions and must deal with the fallout. He also makes the point that it wouldn't be fair to our own children to have to deal with that degree of turmoil and drama in our home. I understand that Mary only came to me because she had nowhere else to turn. But I also know that some people would think I'm cold-hearted for turning away my sister and her children. Not because she genuinely desired my return to her life. She would most likely go back to Derek and abruptly cut me off again if he apologized again tomorrow. Mary and the children are presently lodging at a hotel. Despite their reduced finances due to their retirement, our parents are providing her with financial support. She's trying to decide what to do next and is searching for a job. Although I know that helping would just serve to perpetuate the pattern that took me years to escape, I still have a part of me that wants to assist. Is it immoral of me to defend my family and myself from someone who has repeatedly harmed me? Or should family always come first regardless of previous events? A few weeks ago, I gave an update about my refusal to assist my sister Mary when she arrived seeking lodging after her husband's most recent infidelity. Since then, a lot has transpired, and because things have become more complex, I wanted to provide an update. Let me start by responding to some of the remarks made on my initial post. For the benefit of the kids, a lot of people said I should get help, and I can appreciate their viewpoint. Others agreed with my choice to shield my own family from a person who had harmed me on several occasions. Over the past few weeks, I've given both points of view a lot of thought. My mother contacted me in tears the day after I wrote. According to her, Mary and the children had been lodging in a budget hotel, but they had been asked to leave after running out of money. According to reports, Mary had been seeking for employment but had not yet found any, and the few interviews she had received had not resulted in offers. My mother pleaded with me to think twice about lending Mary a hand, even only briefly. She said that the youngest, who is just 4 years old, had been experiencing nightmares, and that the children were inquiring as to why they were unable to return home. She depicted 3 defenseless kids who were suffering as a result of their parents' errors, and my refusal to assist them. Hearing about the children made me feel awful, but I also knew my mother was attempting to control me. She has a knack for making others feel bad when they don't comply with her demands. Although I acknowledged that the situation was challenging, I informed her that Mary had made her decisions and would have to find answers without consulting me. My mother became irate and stated she was shocked by how icy I had grown. She added that regardless of what had happened in the past, the sister she raised would never abandon her family. She said I should feel ashamed of myself and accused me of harboring resentment like a pampered child. Not because I believed she was correct, but more because I recognized how differently we viewed the issue that talk truly rocked me. To my mother, this was only a short-term family emergency that needed everyone's help. This seemed to me to be the most recent instance of Mary utilizing people when she needed them and throwing them away when she didn't. My dad phoned 2 days later. His strategy differed from my mother's. He said he understood my hesitation to assist, but he also realized that Mary had injured me and that sometimes being the larger person requires helping even when you don't think the other person deserves it. Mary had been inquiring about me, according to my dad. She had apparently been curious about Robert's personality, if I was pleased, and whether my children were doing well. He said that although she was too arrogant to acknowledge it outright, she appeared to regret how our relationship had ended. Mary had never shown an interest in my life, so I was taken aback by this. We didn't communicate for 7 years. I pondered if she was actually interested in the sibling she had pushed away, or if she was only asking now because she needed something from me. In order to better understand Mary's viewpoints, and not necessarily to give assistance, my dad asked if I would be open to meeting with her for a conversation. In order for us to have an open discussion, he recommended that we meet in a neutral setting such as a coffee shop without children. This thought conflicted with me. I kind of wished Mary had changed her mind about our relationship since I missed her. However, I was also concerned that this was simply another ploy to manipulate Mary or my parents, who were very much hoping for us to get back together. I discussed it with Robert, but he wasn't convinced. Mary had several opportunities to reach out throughout the years, he said, if she really felt bad about interrupting me. Her sudden desire to reconnect now that she needed help was convenient, he said, and he was concerned that I was putting myself in a position to get harmed again. I chose to meet with Mary in spite of Robert's reservations. I wanted to make it clear that this was not about me agreeing to help her with housing or money, but I wanted to let my dad know that I would be open to having coffee with her. They were merely sisters who hadn't spoken to each other in years. We met in a little cafe on the other side of town from our respective residences. I arrived first and took a seat at a booth in the corner where we would have some privacy. I was astounded by Mary's transformation when she entered. With dark bags under her eyes and gray streaks in her hair that had never been there before, she seemed older than her actual age of 32. Although she had always been slender, she now had an almost divine appearance. Mary took a seat across from me, and we simply looked at one another for a while. After years of wondering how she looked, how she was doing, and whether she ever gave me any consideration, it was strange to finally see her. She appeared weak and dejected in a manner I had never seen her before. She began by saying that she was grateful that I had agreed to meet. She acknowledged that I didn't know anything about her and thanked me for the time. She then started into an apology that sounded prepared, as if she had rehearsed it in front of the mirror. Mary expressed her apologies for excluding me from her life and for missing significant events such as my wedding and the birth of my kids. She claimed that because she believed that was her duty, she had put her marriage above all else when she was younger and foolish. Without interjecting, I heard her apologize, but I knew there was more. She didn't say anything. She sounded as though she was only following the steps because she had been informed that this was what she had to do in order to receive my assistance. After she was done, I asked her if she truly felt bad about interrupting me, or if she was simply upset that Derek had cheated on her once more and left her with nothing else to do. "That wasn't fair," Mary replied, looking offended. She said that she had been thinking about me a lot throughout the years, particularly at significant life events. I questioned her about why, if she had been thinking about me so much, she had never been in touch. Mary claimed that she had desired to, but was unsure of how. She said that too much time had gone by and that she felt ashamed of the way she had treated me. She also acknowledged that Derek had told her that I was poisonous and would attempt to sever their relationship again, which deterred her from getting back in touch with me. This admission infuriated me. In addition to cheating on Mary twice, Derek had deliberately tried to keep her away from those who loved her. I felt terrible for Mary and angry at her for letting it happen. But I also realized that she had been more manipulated than I had previously realized. When Mary informed me about Derek's most recent affair, she broke down in tears. She claimed to have discovered that he had been unfaithful for more than a year, lying about his whereabouts, and spent money on his lover. She claimed she felt foolish for thinking he had changed and for squandering another 7 years of her life on someone who, in spite of everything, obviously didn't appreciate her. For Mary, I felt my heart tearing. It brought back memories of us as children consoling one another during our parents' arguments and promising to always be there for one another to see her so distraught. The last time I thought about how she had consistently picked Derek over me and how she had abruptly stopped talking to me when I attempted to warn her, I wanted to reach across the table and give her the embrace I would have given her years ago. But I also recalled how she had thrown my support back in my face. The hurt of having the person I loved the most in the world leave me was something I would never be able to forget. Mary inquired about the possibility of repairing our relationship. She said that one of her girls didn't know their aunt and that she missed having me in her life. She acknowledged that I might not immediately trust her, but she hoped we could begin gradually and work towards becoming sisters once more. I admitted to Mary that I missed her as well, but I wasn't sure if I could let her harm me again. I clarified that when she interrupted me, it wasn't only about losing a sister, It was also about realizing that someone I fully trusted could so simply ignore me when I started to cause trouble. Mary said she understood and didn't think I would immediately forgive her. She asked if we might at least attempt to keep in contact, perhaps sending each other a text or getting together for coffee once in a while. She said that all she was requesting was an opportunity to demonstrate that she had learned from her mistakes. I wanted to say yes, but I was also hesitant. Mary had always been adept at expressing what others wanted to hear, particularly when she was in need. She had nowhere else to turn, so I wasn't sure if this was true regret or simply desperation. First, I advised Mary to consider it and then inform her. I didn't respond to her straight away, and she appeared dissatisfied. She acknowledged that I needed time, though. I saw her drive out in a car I didn't recognize after we gave each other an uncomfortable embrace before heading out, most likely borrowed that evening. I discussed the encounter with Robert. He tried his best to listen without pressuring me in any direction, since he could sense I was torn. Whatever he said, I agreed to help him, but he cautioned me from being entangled in Mary's drama again. In the days that followed, Mary was on my mind all the time. I was curious about her children's personalities and if they had inherited her stubbornness. I reflected on all the times we had missed in one another's life and the discussions we had never had. However, I also considered how Mary had only been in touch when she needed something, not to celebrate my successes or inquire about how I was doing. If Derek hadn't cheated on her once again, leaving her in need of help, I questioned if she would have ever gotten in touch with me. Mary texted me a week following our coffee date. She mentioned that she was looking at apartments that she could afford with her wages after landing a job as a server at a restaurant. She expressed her gratitude for our encounter once more and expressed her desire that we might speak soon. Although I was happy to hear that she was making efforts to start again, I observed that she made no mention of the children or their housing. I figured that since our parents were still providing for her, the immediate problem was over. I wanted to contact her back to see how she was doing, but I refrained. I wasn't prepared to open that door once more, particularly because I wasn't certain of Mary's intentions or whether she would stay if circumstances improved for her. Then something occurred yesterday that completely altered the situation. Mary had been in a vehicle accident, my mother informed me over the phone. She was all right, only a sprained wrist and some bruises, but everyone was disturbed by it. Mary was concerned about missing work and losing the job she had recently been given after the accident occurred when she was driving to her new employment. Mary had inquired about me following the accident, according to my mother. She apparently informed the paramedic that she intended to contact her sister, that is me, but then she caught herself and asked to speak with our parents. This let me see that in spite of everything, Mary still thought of me when she was feeling wounded and afraid. I'm writing this update because I'm not sure what to do anymore. A part of me wants to get in touch with Mary and try to gradually reestablish a connection. However, I also worry that when she no longer needs me, I'm merely positioning myself to be exploited and dumped once more. The immediate strain is off because Mary's housing situation appears to have stabilized for the time being. I must choose between being someone she can turn to and keeping the distance I've worked so hard to establish, because I know this won't be the last catastrophe in her life. The question of what is proper keeps coming up in my mind. Should I give Mary another opportunity to demonstrate her transformation? Or should I put my faith in my prior experiences and guard against future harm? Update 2. I haven't posted in around 6 weeks, and a lot has happened since then that I'm not sure where to begin. The circumstances surrounding Mary have become considerably more complex, and I've discovered some information that has fundamentally altered my perspective on everything that transpired between us. I made the decision to text Mary to check on her after her vehicle accident. It was a straightforward note expressing that I had learnt about the tragedy and hoped she wasn't gravely injured. Mary texted me back right away to let me know that she was okay, but that the car was totaled. She also thanked me for checking in on her. We began messaging each other sometimes as a result of this. Nothing profound or significant, simple check-ins about our progress. Mary would talk to me about how tired she was from standing all day at her work at the diner. I would give brief updates about my career and children. In an unexpected manner, it seemed both familiar and weird. Mary asked me whether I would be interested in getting coffee again around 3 weeks ago. It would be preferable to speak face-to-face, she continued, since she had certain things she wanted to share with me. I was apprehensive since I was emotionally spent from our previous encounter, but something in her text convinced me that this was crucial. We reconnected at the same cafe. This time, Mary looked better. Her hair was clean and groomed, and she had put on a few pounds again. She felt that working would help her find the structure and purpose she had been lacking. Mary began by informing me that over the years we had been away, she had been reflecting a lot on our relationship. She claimed to have discovered details concerning that period that I was unaware of. Derek had kept some things from us both. That could make it easier for me to comprehend her behavior. I had always wondered whether there was more to the tale than Mary interrupting me since I didn't agree with her reconciliation with Derek, so this caught my interest. Even explaining how she became blinded by love had never fully explained how she turned on me so thoroughly. After they reconciled, Mary inhaled deeply and informed me that Derek had misled her about me. Derek had persuaded Mary that I was attempting to ruin their marriage because I was envious of their love. He informed her that I had attempted to convince him to leave her alone by calling him behind her back. I had never phoned Derek before, so I was taken aback. Even after he and Mary were married, I had seldom talked to him. When I originally told Mary this, she claimed she now believed me. But because I've been so outspoken about not trusting Derek at the moment, she thought his love made sense. Mary went on to tell me how Derek's lying had gotten worse over time. I told folks all throughout town that Mary was pitiful for bringing him back, he said. He said that I had been attempting to turn their friends against them and circulating false information about their marriage. Derek was incredibly persuasive, so Mary accepted all of this even if it was untrue. Derek's most egregious falsehood was that I had stated that Mary's children would benefit more from her absence as a mother. Mary informed me about this one, and her voice trembled. Derek said I believed she was too unstable and self-centered to raise children properly, and that the children deserved better than her, she added. I would never say anything like that about Mary or any mother, so hearing this made me ill. Even in my most irate moments with her. I never doubted her capacity to love and raise her kids. Derek was incredibly vicious and manipulative, as evidenced by the fact that he would fabricate something so awful. Mary said that her mind was poisoned against me by these lies. Over the years, whenever she considered getting in touch, she would recall Derek telling her that I had said something about her and the children, and she had persuaded herself that I detested her and believed she was a bad person, so there was no need in attempting to get back in touch. Mary told me that she had confronted Derek about his lying during one of their last arguments before he left, when I asked her why she was telling me this now. He had a weird expression on his face when she brought up some of the things he had said, so I told her she was misremembering. Mary came to the realization that he had been lying about me all along. Mary broke down in tears as she expressed her regret for falling for Derek's falsehoods and allowing them to keep us apart for so long. I should have known, she said. She was embarrassed that she had let Derek to so thoroughly control her, and I would never say such terrible things about her. I also started weeping. Mary's apologies wasn't the only reason. I also now realized what had truly transpired between us. There was more to it than Mary chose Derek over me. Derek had deliberately tried to ruin our relationship by spreading false information about me to Mary. This insight significantly changed my perspective on Mary's behavior. She had not simply decided that she no longer needed my assistance. She had believed me to be her adversary, someone with the intention of harming her and her family. It makes sense why she severed our relationship and wouldn't allow me to return. Mary questioned me if I would ever be able to forgive her for missing so many years of our lives together and for falling for Derek's lies. She wanted me to know that even though she believed I despised her, she would always love me, and that she understood if I couldn't trust her again. I truly meant it when I told Mary that I was forgiving of her. I didn't even realize I had been bearing that burden for years until I learnt about Derek's deception. I had pondered what I had done incorrectly to cause Mary to entirely turn against me. I saw now that it wasn't truly about me. We spoke about the years we've missed throughout the remainder of our coffee date. According to Mary, her kids had inquired about having an aunt. I was astounded to see how much they resembled us at their ages in the photos she showed me on her phone. Before we departed, I told her about my twins and how they occasionally asked why they had no relatives. Instead of pretending that the past had never happened, Mary asked if there was any way that we might start again and develop a fresh connection based on our current selves rather than the hurt and miscommunication that had kept us apart. Mary wanted to try, but I needed to take things carefully, I informed her. It would take some time for me to feel comfortable opening up again after years of shielding myself from the hurt of losing her. Mary stated that she was prepared to exercise patience and that she understood. Mary and I have met for coffee twice more in the last 3 weeks, and we have been messaging more frequently. Sometimes it's been difficult, like we're relearning how to be sisters, but it's also been therapeutic in unexpected ways. Over the years we've been separated, I've been telling Mary about my life, and she's been revealing more about hers. Because of situations that none of us was a part of, we are both different individuals now than we were 7 years ago. We are still the same sisters who used to spend the entire night discussing everything and nothing, despite those changes. Mary's living condition has improved. 2 weeks ago, she and the daughters moved into a modest flat that she could afford with her waitressing wages. They own it, even if it's not much. Additionally, Mary appears pleased with her independent accomplishments. Derek and Mary have also begun the divorce process. She said that she was ready to move on from his deceit and manipulation and that she was done making excuses for him. She seems more resilient and driven than I've ever seen her, as if experiencing this most recent betrayal had finally made her realize Derek's true nature. The fact that Mary and I are communicating once more has delighted our parents. In order for the children to meet their cousins, they have been urging us to get them together. I'm amenable to this concept, but before we include our kids in our relationship, I want to make sure Mary and I have a strong foundation. Robert has been encouraging yet wary of my efforts to get back together with Mary. He wants to protect me from being harmed again since he knows how much anguish I felt after losing her. I respect his concern, but now that I know the truth about what transpired between us, I feel differently about Mary. Rebuilding our connection will take a lot of effort. We need to work through years of hurt and miscommunication, and I am aware that trust takes time to regain. However, I'm hopeful that Mary and I may be sisters once more for the first time in 7 years. Since so many people left comments on my first post on forgiveness and second chances, I wanted to provide this update. I'm coming to see that sometimes the truth is more nuanced than it first seems. Mary didn't simply leave me because she didn't value our relationship or was self-centered. Someone who wanted to keep her apart from those who loved her most was manipulating her. I'm not saying that everything is okay between us now, and this doesn't justify all of Mary's decisions, but knowing the truth has allowed me to release some of the resentment I've been holding inside. I'm cautiously hopeful about the future of our relationship. In ways that offer me hope, Mary has also been improving herself. She has truly transformed. She has been more forthright about how Derek's manipulation influenced her decision-making. She has admitted that she ought to have asked questions about some of the things he told her about me, particularly because they were so inconsistent with who she knew me to be. She has also been owning up to her part in our relationship's breakdown, despite Derek's deception of her. Mary acknowledges that it was simpler to believe those lies than to consider the prospect that I could have been correct about him all along. Mary is still struggling financially, but she is taking care of herself without my or our parents' assistance. She appears committed to demonstrating her independence in caring for herself and her kids. Despite the fact that I can tell she struggles occasionally, I appreciate her independence. After Mary informed her that they had an aunt, her eldest daughter began to inquire more about me. When Mary showed her some old photos of us as children, the little girl reportedly remarked that we looked like twins. According to Mary, it helped her see how much we all resemble family and how unfortunate it was that the children had not been able to meet their extended relatives. I've been considering if I'm prepared to meet Mary's daughters. While I'm thrilled about the prospect of having nieces, I'm also concerned that if Mary Ann and I don't get along, I could get close to them. I'm inclined to agree with Robert when he suggests that I hold off on involving the kids for a little while longer. Explaining to my own kids why they suddenly have an aunt they've never heard of before has been the most difficult aspect of this whole affair. Although my twins are just 5 years old and don't fully comprehend the complexities of adult relationships, they have been inquiring as to why Mary wasn't present for their Christmas and birthday festivities. I've made an effort to describe it in ways that are acceptable for the age group, stating that adults occasionally have arguments that cause them to be separated for a while. However, that does not imply that their love for one another ends. My boys are interested about meeting their cousins, but they appear to accept this reasoning. I was taken aback by how much I've missed Mary in my life, even outside of our sisterhood. I didn't realize I was missing having a close confidant like Mary until I started to regain it. We used to discuss everything, including work-related concerns, parental difficulties, and marital problems. I've told Mary about some of the difficulties Robert and I have had over the years, and she has listened well. She has been sincerely interested in learning about my life and has offered wise counsel. Our relationship feels different now than it did when we were younger, more mature, and more balanced. I'm beginning to envision what it may be like to have Mary back in my life permanently, but I'm trying not to get ahead of myself. Our children play together at family get-togethers, someone I can contact when I want to speak or need guidance. Having a sister, once again, rather than being, for all intents and purposes, an only kid. However, I'm also making an effort to be realistic about the difficulties that lie ahead. Mary is still coping with the emotional fallout from Derek's years of deception, as well as a challenging divorce. She is under a lot of pressure and stress as she works to provide a secure life for herself and her girls. I don't want to put too much pressure on Mary by having high expectations for our relationship too soon. In the event that things don't work out, I must simultaneously safeguard my family and myself from harm. I'm still learning how to maintain this delicate balance. I do know that everything has changed for me since I discovered the truth about Derek's falsehoods. Mary no longer seems to have deceived me out of self-interest or apathy. Rather, she was duped by someone she trusted, in my opinion. Someone who committed errors but didn't actively want to harm me. Update 3. I am posting what will likely be my last update about this matter. 4 months have passed since my previous post, and I wanted to update you on how our relationship with Mary has been going. I was optimistic that Mary and I might reestablish our sisterly relationship after discovering Derek's deceit and manipulation. We've been messaging often, going out to coffee on a regular basis, and gradually reestablishing our relationship. For a while, it seemed as though we would be able to go on as sisters and get past the past. Derek's return, however, caused everything to fall apart once more. 2 months or so ago. Mary phoned me in tears. Late one night, Derek had arrived at her flat, inebriated and contrite. He informed her that he wanted to make amends for their girl's sake and that he had made a grave error by leaving her for the other lady. Mary said that she told him to go and that she didn't want to hear his excuses. She said that she had now recognized him for who he truly was and that she would not be duped by him once again. Over the next several days, I told her that I was proud of her for sticking to her principles. Derek continued to visit Mary's flat and place of employment. Letters were written, flowers were given, and even his mother called Mary and pleaded with her to give him another opportunity. Mary told me she wouldn't give in to his pressure, but she did appear irritated by his insistence. Derek, however, was more crafty than we both knew. He began telling Mary that his girlfriend had been the one controlling him rather than simply expressing regret for the affair. He said that she had been lying to him about Mary, claiming that she had told Derek she never wanted to see him again and that Mary was preparing to take the children and vanish. Derek informed Mary that he intended to ruin his connection with his daughters and that his girlfriend had persuaded him that Mary detested him. According to him, he had only remained with the girlfriend because he believed Mary no longer wanted him in their life. He had been attempting to shield the girls from what he believed to be Mary's rejection. After one of these talks with Derek, Mary contacted me, and I could hear the uncertainty beginning to seep into her voice. She claimed that although Derek's tale didn't make perfect logic, it did seem realistic in certain places. She began to wonder if she had been too hasty to criticize him for going. I informed Mary of all the falsehoods Derek had spread about me and how he had tricked her into removing me from her life. I pointed out that although the target was different, the pattern was precisely the same. Derek would never accept responsibility for his acts. Instead, he would constantly place the blame for his decisions on others. Mary was beginning to falter emotionally, even if she agreed with me rationally. A part of her hoped that perhaps this time would be different because Derek had been her lifelong love. She stated that although she would not take him back, she was thinking of allowing him to see the girls more frequently because he appeared to be sincere in his apology. I attempted to be supportive, but yet voicing my worries since I had a horrible feeling about the direction things was going. I reminded Mary that Derek had left her and the children without a trace and had cheated on her twice. Even if his most recent story were accurate, I added it wouldn't justify his habit of deceit and treachery. Mary stated she had to consider what was best for her girls, but she understood my worries. Even though she and Derek couldn't be together as a couple, she said that they deserved to have a relationship with their father since they missed him. Mary phoned me 2 weeks later to let me know that Derek was spending more time with the girls and that everything was going smoothly. According to her, he appeared to be a different guy, now more responsible and mature than before. Although she wasn't prepared to reconcile, she was letting him spend the night with the daughters on the weekends. When Mary told me this, my stomach dropped, but I made an effort to be encouraging. I advised her to exercise caution and to follow her gut if anything didn't seem right. I could immediately tell that Mary was being drawn back into Derek's sphere of influence despite her assurances that she was exercising caution and would not allow Derek to control her once more. She began talking to me about him more frequently and sharing stories about his interactions with the daughters. Even when she was making an effort to keep her distance, she appeared to be thinking about him all the time. Mary texted me 3 weeks ago to let me know that Derek had asked her to join him and the girls for supper as a family trip. Nothing romantic. The daughters had been wondering why Mommy and Daddy couldn't spend time together, so she stated she was thinking about it. I was concerned about what I was hearing, so I contacted Mary rather than messaging her back. I reminded her that Derek had done the exact same thing to her the last time, using the kids as a pretext to spend time with her, and then easing his way back into her life. Mary became defensive, saying that she was no longer naive and that this was different. She said that I was being paranoid and that she could manage being around Derek without succumbing to his influence. Like Derek used to do, she accused me of attempting to influence her choices and not believing in her judgment. The fact that this claim was untrue made it painful. I had no intention of controlling Mary. I was attempting to shield her from a person who had frequently harmed her. However, I could clearly see that Mary, like she had 7 years prior, was beginning to consider my worries as interference. I informed Mary that while I respected her autonomy, I also had the right to shield myself from seeing her suffer harm once more. I told her that I hoped she would exercise caution and that I would be there for her in case she needed me, but I couldn't endure another round of seeing Derek ruin her. Mary claimed to understand, but it was obvious that she was annoyed with me. After that, we spoke less often, and Mary came across as reserved and aloof when we did. Mary phoned me last week to let me know that she and Derek were attempting to resolve their differences. She added that Derek was now owning up to his previous transgressions and that they had been attending counseling together. According to her, they were concentrating on restoring trust and moving gently. When I asked Mary why she had changed her opinion about Derek, she said that she had come to the conclusion that harboring resentment was unhealthy for both her and the children. She said that by attending therapy on his own initiative and being forthright about his prior actions, Derek had demonstrated his commitment to change. Mary also apologized for lying about me years ago and said that she and Derek had discussed me and Derek. She stated he wanted to make apologies since he now realized how his lies hurt our relationship. Although I couldn't pretend to be hopeful about Mary's future with Derek, I gave her the initial optimism that all would work out for her. I replied that I had seen this pattern far too often and that I didn't think Derek could bring about the type of significant change Mary was seeking. Mary became irate and accused me of being judgmental and unsupportive. Instead of attempting to undermine her family's reconciliation, she stated, I should be pleased that they were getting back together. She said that because I couldn't bear to see her happy, I wanted her to be sad and alone. Mary said she was sick of my negativity and hung up on me, which was a poor way to conclude our talk. Except for a text message yesterday informing me that she and Derek were moving back in together and that she needed time away from people who couldn't support her decisions. I haven't heard from her since. Although I'm not shocked by the outcome, I am disappointed. I believed that Mary had finally come to see Derek clearly and that we would be able to start our relationship over after a few months. However, Derek has a greater hold on her than reason or prior knowledge. The reunion of Mary and Derek has our parents ecstatic. They have been putting pressure on me to be more encouraging since they perceive it as the family coming together once more. They don't see why, despite my worries about Derek, I can't just be glad that Mary is content. My resolve to take a back seat for Mary once more has received approval from Robert. He is aware of the emotional toll I have been taking on her and her kids. He has reminded me that I have my own family to take care of and that I cannot save someone who does not want to be saved. I can't bear to see Mary repeat the same mistakes, so I've disabled her number and social media accounts. I'm aware that Mary will likely seek assistance from Derek once he cheats on her once more, but I can no longer be that person for her. I've discovered that some people are adamant about continuing their habits regardless of the harm it does to them or their loved ones. Mary is among such individuals. Even when it wrecks everything else in her life, she can't get enough of the drama and mayhem of her relationship with Derek. Mary's girls will grow up witnessing their parents' poisonous relationship and believing that's what love looks like, which makes me sad for them. Mary has so much potential, but she continues selecting someone who mistreats her, and I feel awful for her. And if Mary had been able to escape Derek's grip, I regret the sisterly bond we may have shared. However, I am also pleased that this cycle is over. I've worried about Mary and tried to protect her from her own decisions for far too long. In my own marriage, I have my own kids to raise and care for. I can't give up my mental health for someone who doesn't appreciate my contributions. I will always adore Mary, and she will always be my sister. However, love does not include allowing her chaos to overtake my life or watching her destroy herself. Stepping back and letting someone deal with the fallout from their decisions might sometimes be the most compassionate thing you can do for them. I'm putting an end to this phase of my life and concentrating on our boys and the family I've created with Robert. Right now, what matters most to me is that we are stable and happy. Perhaps Mary will eventually have the fortitude to permanently leave Derek. However, that is her path to take. I'm not here to help. Anyone who has a family member caught in a harmful pattern should read this. I want you to know that self-defense is okay. Someone cannot be changed by your love alone. Additionally, you shouldn't put your own health at risk in an attempt to save someone who is unwilling to be saved. Mary made her decision. I'm currently creating my peace is what I chose.